So composing, recollecting, reflecting the way it is here and now, a sense of one-pointedness, the way it is. These are like reflective statements. They're not descriptions, but reminders. Like the value of morning, evening puja is remembering. So over the years of chanting these traditional reflections, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and so forth, it begins to, through repetition, these really become very kind of fixed in the mind. They're reminders rather than just habitual chants. So like my description of the three refuges, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, at first, of course, I first ordained and started chanting. It was very perfunctory, did it because you were supposed to, and didn't really, in those days in Thailand, they didn't translate, so I didn't have any English translation, so I just kind of memorized the chants. But over the years, then, like this word Buddha suddenly means something very profound. It just it's a significant word, because Bhutto is immediately that, training oneself to just think to oneself, Bhutto. I notice sound of silence immediately if I'm caught up in thinking about other things, and then just that simple word, Bhutto. Now that's a way of training one's mind. Or the breath, the inhalation, Bu-to, the exhalation, inhalation, pu, exhalation, to. So that the thinking process, the word itself, the mantra, aligned with awakened attention. So it's not just a kind of thinking process and mind wandering all over the place. You can think Bhuttos, the Buddha, and still be, wandering away and worrying about something or whatever. But through this way of training, it's developing good. I mean, if it just remains habit, then at least they're good habits. But actually it leads to insight, because it's Bhutto, suddenly you have this kind of gut knowledge. You understand what Buddha really is, in the reality of Buddha, rather than just the concept or the word as just a word in itself. It's actually a helpful convention. Now, people, when they go on these retreats, we do, because of the restraint and kind of the order and that we live under, and then by now, people are relatively calm. The restlessness of that they felt in the beginning settles down, and so then one becomes easier to concentrate. But then we think, when they go back home, back to work, etc., then I don't feel this way. I feel, go back to the old way, of reactions. How do I integrate? The big question. So it's important to recognize the conditions that are affecting you at this time. The order, the precepts, the noble silence. You're not here to think about, you wear this modest clothing. You're not thinking about dressing up or impressing others with your appearance, which one tends to do in ordinary life, or going shopping, preparing food, just the daily routines of an average person. Here it's all kind of done for you. All you have to do is conform to the schedule. So the result of that, is that it leads to, not a lot of distraction and thinking about what to buy, what kind of food, what to wear, relationship with others. The relationships here all, in this retreat are based on these precepts. Noble silence, refraining from, keep silent and to not harm each other, steal each other's things, or take advantage, exploit. So it has this agreed way of living physically in the same place, verbally. Now, when we leave this particular, even a monastic life, from a very organized retreat to a daily monastic routine, then it's much more, you have to work and do things and talk with others and meetings and the usual way that one lives one's life as a monk or a nun. But this Buddho, this way of taking just some simple word like that. First it can be just a perfunctory mantra, Buddho, 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 then just to stop the mind from proliferating. If you want to think, just think Buddho, that's enough. So that need to think and be attached to thinking, at least if you're attached to thoughts, attached to Buddho, as a way of limiting, putting boundary on the thinking process. But then it's not just a kind of training yourself and kind of to become a habit, but also to remind, to reflect, the awakened one, the pure one, perfectly enlightened one, this Buddho. And Dhammo, this is a chant, Santitiko Akaliko Ehipasko Punaiko Bhajatang Vetidapo Vinyuhi, every morning, evening, and translated, apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inward, to be experienced individually by the wise. So this is this reflection on Dhamma. Notice it, Santitiko, apparent here and now. It's not about practicing now to get a result in the future. So Dhamma is here and now. It's not something you don't have and you've got to find. It's apparent here and now through awakened attention. Santitiko Dhamma, akaliko, timeless. It's not about last retreat or in the future, if I practice mindfulness, I will, about the future or the past. But it's timeless. So the timeless moment, isn't it, is that this is timelessness, mindfulness and timelessness go together. Ehipassiko, we say encouraging investigation. This is rather a I don't particularly like this translation because actually it's more or less an invitation. The ehipassiko, come and see. Like you're saying, encouraging investigation sounds like, it gives the impression of you should be, investigating Dhamma. But ehipassiko, more like, come to see, like wake up and see now, don't put it off, don't mess around. Wake up, it's here now, don't look at it anywhere else. Encouraging investigation sounds too abstract, like you've got to do something rather than just awake. Well, I'm going to practice awakening. When I investigate Dhamma, then eventually I hope to awaken. And that's sort of pathetic self-view, isn't it? This ego, well, encouraging investigation. That's what I'm doing. I encourage myself to investigate Dhamma here and now. And someday maybe I will, have an insight. That's not ehipassiko. So it's come and see. I can't wake up for you. And then opanayiko, leading inwards. It means you're not seeking it externally. Right? You're this inner awakening, a sense of alertness, in which you're not looking for anything. You're just in a state of alert attention, fully awakened. And bhajjatang vettida paviniri, to be experienced individually, no one can do this for you or make it happen for you. So this is Dhamma, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, Supatipanno, those who practice the Eightfold Path. Supatipanno, su is always a prefix meaning good, like Sumedho is my name, means good wisdom. So the word su always has this sense of a positive goodness. Tu is its opposite. So like dukkha and sukha. Sukha is happiness, dukkha is suffering. Supatipanno is one who's practicing in the right way. And that's it's not a person anymore. It's not who in this room is a supatipanno. Then we get into personalities again, or into personal conceits, or maybe I think I'm a supatipanno, but you're not. That's a sense of conceit, isn't it? A self-view. Or we think so and so is a supatipanno and not another one. It's not about seeing in terms of people or personalities or separateness, but it's a reflection on practicing in the right way, mindfulness. Bhutto, here and now. Supatipanno, ujjapatipanno, direct. And what I've been trying to convey, the direct, you can't get more direct in this practice. Because it's not about gradual, doing this in order to attain this level, and then the next level, and then the next level. It's about wake up and see. So then they referring to sound of silence, if you can recognize it. expansive. Some people feel irritated by it. I've heard people say, "I don't like it." They think it's, they're looking for maybe a Hallelujah chorus or the angelic choir from King's College, Cambridge, and something that you get through meditation. Or you can call it like a buzz in the ear, or it's not in itself. One can, feel irritated by it. And a buzz in the ear makes it sound like, it doesn't make it sound very pleasant. So, because of those words, buzz is usually an irritating sound, like a mosquito buzzing. But this is, put it in terms where it's inviting, like scintillating stream, something like this. The sacred stream. Put it using positive images. It changes your attitude towards it. But it's not to go around, I'm in touch with the sacred stream, or I've got to find it. Then it gets into, I'm somebody who is special because I've attained the sacred stream. Is still, that's Sakkaya Ditthi. That's not it. It's not about becoming anything. So the danger of attachment and self-view, this is insidious, this self-view, even attaching to Buddhism and practice and morality and all the good things we can attach to, can make us very unpleasant, conceited, arrogant, religious people. So this is where this reflection on Sakkaya Ditthi, the first fetter, is not, is a know what the ego is, the sense of yourself, your self-importance, your conceits, or the sense of your, the sense of feeling inferior, not good enough, or imperfect, or lonely, or whatever self-view, whether it's I'm the best in the world or the worst, it's still Sakkaya Ditthi. It's a sense of me and mine and limiting, binding yourself to these separative, dualistic conventions. So in there's 10 fetters, and the first 3 fetters, Sakkaya Ditthi, Silabbata Paramasa, Vicikicca, they're all created by human beings. They're not. After that, then once you kind of see through these artifices, creations of humanity, then you're in touch with just the natural functions of sexual desire and anger. These are not cultural creations. They're part of the package of this realm, of the sense realm of our humanity, or just our animalness. Because animals, the animal realm, we have animal type bodies where sexual desire and aversion are quite natural to this realm. So that animals get angry, and they don't have egos as such. They're operating from instinct, but they still procreate sexual desire, and they get angry, and they get jealous, and they have emotions. It's like we do. But we can reflect on these emotions. But the first 3 fetters, Sakkaya Ditthi, the sense of personality view. I am the body, I am this person. Now, as soon as you identify yourself verbally like that, I am the body, then of course that creates this, and that it goes without question, I'm separating myself from you. So I'm this body sitting here, and you're out there, and of course this is how that the conventional, the conditioned realm is. It's all about here and there, time and place, me and you, good and bad, right and wrong. Then they say the second fetter, Silabbata Paramasa, I always interpret that now as more like cultural conditioning, social conditioning. It's not so much a sense of self, that one is acquired of, but the assumptions one gets from being conditioned by being born into a certain family or culture, ethnic group, religion, that you acquire this Silabbata Paramasa after you're born. So you're not born as a Thai or an English person. You acquire that sense of I'm English after you're born, or I'm Thai or Sri Lankan or whatever. This is these are conventions, the cultural conditions that one acquires after birth, and assumptions, like in the Sangha here at Amaravati, we've got, it's very international. We've got Thai monks, Sinhalese, different Europeans, Americans, Canadians, Australian, different age groups, generations, monks and nuns. So these are these different cultural assumptions. We can easily misunderstand each other, just on a cultural level, because of different assumptions we get through social identities or cultural identities. And so these are, attachment to these, where, it's very habitual. Maybe it's not even intentional, but the only way we can get beyond this cultural conditioning is through mindfulness. So mindfulness puts us in a pure state of consciousness before we become English, American, Thai, male, female, anything like this. This emptiness doesn't have any, it has no quality to it. It's not hasn't a gender, not European or Asian, but it's intelligent. You're not becoming just stupid and like a zombie or unconscious, and it's recognizable. So notice that the first two fetters, Sakkaya Ditthi, Silabbata Paramasa, this is about conditioning, consciousness after you're born. Then you acquire these identities. You're not born with those identities. Sense of being European or English or British or German or whatever. These are acquired as cultural conditioning. And then Vicikicca is translated as doubt. And of course it's the fifth hindrance also. So this Vicikicca is always the attachment to the thinking process. When people that just think are never quite sure. You lived, you've gone to universities and lived in university environments, all with people never full of doubters and skeptics. Oftentimes they can't make up their mind to do anything because they think too much. In Thailand, when I was learning Thai language, I found it amusing because one of the definitions of madness, craziness, in the Thai language is one who thinks too much. I'd never thought of that before. And I was one of those, really. According to the Thai description of madness, I was a mad person when I first went to live there. Think. And that takes you to indecision, doubt, hesitation, attachment to thinking, in other words. Ignorance, attachment to thinking will always end up with vicikiccha, or uncertainty, doubt. Now this is also an acquired thing, because you aren't born thinking in any language. So that's conditioned also. You acquire the thinking process and language abilities after birth. Now, what I'm pointing to, these three fetters, these are the obstructions to samadhi, or right understanding, or sotapanna, stream entry. So they have these 4 stages in the scriptural teaching: sotapanna, sakadagami, anagami, arahant. The first 3 fetters, as long as these have not been understood and seen for what they are, then we're not, we don't notice that we can't see the path clearly. We can't see the way of non-suffering. And so that's why, this exercise that I've been encouraging you to contemplate, such as, I am unenlightened person who's come here to practice in order to become enlightened in the future. You see what I mean? If you don't question, if you don't see this as a creation, it's sakkaya ditthi, silabhata paramasa vicikiccha. You're actually creating that illusion, with language, because you see yourself always as a personality, or somebody who is imperfect, who needs to get something. We tend to see ourselves through this sense of being lonely, or not good, or unenlightened, or neurotic, or whatever. How you see yourself as a person, and then this awareness of that, of the personality. It's not like getting rid of the personality, but no longer operating from these basic delusions. So then the word stream entry, or sotapanna, becomes another form of sakkaya ditthi if you're not careful. Am I a stream enterer or not? Stream entry is very difficult for me because I've got so many personal problems and neurotic habits, and then you're creating the sense of you're grasping the term stream enterer or sotapanna from ignorance, from avijja, and then measuring yourself accordingly. This is some kind of attainment that you feel you haven't attained. Or if you start thinking you are a stream enterer, it's the same thing. I'm a stream enterer. What are you? And the word for one who isn't a stream enterer is like batuchana in Pali. You're just a batuchana. You're still ignorant, an unenlightened person, not like me. And that's Sakkaya Ditthi, isn't it? That's, you grasping Buddhist concepts out of ignorance. And we can delude ourselves even more by grasping religious conventions blindly. So it's not about becoming a stream enterer, but because actually the 10 fetters and these 4 stages are skillful teachings for reflection, not for grasping. So that's why this Sakkaya Ditthi, it's the first one, it's the one of the most subtle, because it's insidious. We're so obsessed with ourselves as a person, with our abilities or whatever, and our identities, our self-importance, our fears, overwhelm us. The self swarms like worms within our living clay. This self-view is like a swarm of worms eating away inside you. So in the sense of this awakening to Sakkaya Ditthi is not getting rid of anything, but recognizing. And then Sakkaya Ditthi depends on your identity, and I am the unquestioned identity, commitment to your delusions of I'm this person, I'm like this, I'm this body, I'm this nationality, I'm this age, I'm a very important person, or I'm a nobody, I can practice well, I don't practice very well, whatever you think whatever way you conceive yourself, it's Sakkaya Ditthi. And the knowing of that. So that's the mindfulness, awareness of Sakkaya Ditthi. And Sakkaya Ditthi depends on grasping this sense of I am. Me and mine. Self-view. Now, with the sound of silence, the self-view drops away. So because of that, because it has this continuity, it's self-sustaining. It's not, so we, training ourselves to use this background for kind of relaxing into it, and being, and so that we have this alertness and where we can begin to see perspective on our compulsive personal habits and obsessions and subtleties of Silabbata Paramasa, of cultural assumptions. Attitudes that we acquire when we're still infants, small children, and we acquire certain attitudes, class identities. I think one of the things, being American, coming to live in England, is you're aware of how strong class identity is in this country. Where in the States, at least from my background, West Coast American, I don't have any strong identity on that level. I don't. It's just not part of the cultural conditioning. So when I would talk about middle class from an American point of view, it's almost everyone. It's not such a strong sense of of middle class is just this. And then when I'm living here in England, there's upper middle class, lower middle class. So even middle class is divided into upper and lower. I've heard people say these things. I'm from lower middle class, upper middle class, and then working class. Working class Brits have strong identity with that perception in a way that I've never noticed that in the States, because this is cultural conditioning. It has a strong effect on how we see ourselves in the society and self-worth. But that which is aware, say, of class, of I'm working class or upper middle class or upper class, I'm from the upper class, is still Sakyaditi, whatever class you identify with. Because those are conventions, aren't they? Cultural conventions that are different, different in Germany or France or whatever it may be. It all has its own peculiarities of identification. Now with Vicikicca, notice like they have these different like self-inquiry or who am I practices, like asking yourself a question. Or like in Zen Buddhism where they use koans, they have these kind of conundrums that you can't, they make no sense. And when you try to solve them intellectually, then, trying to find an answer to the sound of the clap of one hand or something like this, it's a deliberate technique to put you in a state of doubt. And the effect of this doubting, vicikicca, is when you're not sure, when there's doubt, then your mind's quite empty for a moment. You notice that, say, who am I? And then, thinking inwardly, ask yourself, who am I? And then you notice that there's a gap there. Like then the usual, I'm Ajahn Sumedho kind of thing comes up, but you already know that. So you're not trying to, the answer on the conventional level. But the point is the question, the form of a question, puts your intellect in the state of not knowing, of a space or a gap. Now that's an awareness of that gap, where suddenly, who am I? And then there's this pause. Or say, did I switch off the electric lights in my kuti this morning before coming here? And then there's a kind of pause there. Did I? And then the conventional thing, well, I'm sure you did. You always do. And of course, or maybe, I did, it was a bit late this morning, I thought maybe, and then you're not really interested in the question as such, but noticing the effect of a question. As you can quite intentionally use questioning, not to get conventional answers and solutions to questions or problems, but noticing this empty gap where you don't know, there's not knowing, doubt. So these three fetters then are, they're not to be suppressed or denied, or we're not to get rid of self-view, cultural conditioning, or the thinking process, but we're to understand them, to not be enslaved to them, not always be operating from conditioned habits, prejudices, biases, and all that we operate from. If we don't know this, if we're still bound into these three fetters without understanding, then we're merely like puppets on a string, really. Or, that's why, with ignorant populations you can, how to move, how to intimidate, how to frighten, how to manipulate human beings, because they're ignorant. Avita, ignorance. So fear is the one thing, like tyrannies, isn't it? Tyrannical political systems use fear, because that's how you can control people, through making them frightened. So if you meet people who've lived in tyrannical societies where there've been, the whole society operates through fear, then there's control from maybe a dictator or some strong personality who has control over your life because of fear. Secret police, a big brother's watching you, the knock on the door at midnight, And so this is, you feel it now, even the countries like this or the states use fear a lot, to control the population. There's always an enemy, a terrorist, an evil force trying to harm us or take away our freedom or whatever. So these are, through propaganda, intimidation, we're subject to these, out of this avijja, ignorance of these first three fetters. So this is the stream entry. Then is when these three fetters are seen, when we're no longer binding ourselves to these to personality view, to cultural conventional habits or ways of thinking, and to do that then is this mindfulness. This is the gate to the deathless, and ability to observe self. That which is aware of self is not self. So that which is aware of I am Ajahn Sumedho, that's not self. That's pure awareness. That's Bhutto, knowing Dhamma, rather than Ajahn Sumedho believes in that he doesn't have a self. Or that there's something wrong with self. It's not about judging Sakkaya Ditthi, but recognizing it. You see, so this is the Ujjupatipanna, direct, looking at things as what they are, rather than operating from habitual behavior, conditioned reactions, preferences, discrimination,